much on my mind. Too much on my mind. Too much on my la 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 la. Here I am thinking again, all lost in my brain.
Good evening, Village Beauties, and welcome to Urban Agenda. I'm your host, Lissa Jones, and it's getting a little warmer in the village tonight, but keep your coats on. We've got a hot show tonight with one of KMOJ's very own. Don't sleep on this young man, because we're about to get down with everything Pan-African. And my guest in the studio tonight is somebody so many of you know, and he's actually a worldwide star. Welcome to Urban Agenda. Charles Dennis, I'm delighted to have you.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
Well, let's start out first by talking about this division that's sort of been, I don't know whether it's been put in our community, which is what I'm guessing, or whether we allowed it to grow up in our community. This idea that we've somehow begun to separate African Americans from Africans. Mm-hmm. And what do you think are some of the roots of that?
I think the key root of that is ignorance. I think if we step back and look just in our present condition, we can see how if we look at ourselves as one people, how powerful we can become. And if you want to question that, look at what President Barack Obama is made of. Yes. An African and an American. So, and then if you look at the history of black people, you have great Pan-Africanists who saw the entire black race as a nation, be you in Europe, the Caribbean, or America. You are under one nation. And so, the ignorance of not knowing who we truly are is the problem that causes us to drift apart. Because if we only stop and realize how closely we are connected, there will be no force in this world that will keep us apart. When I think of home, I think of the dirt. When I think of home, I think of how I can smell the rain from a distance. When I think of home, I think of how, because there's less street lights, the moon is brighter than the sun at night. When I think of home, I think of place where people who didn't sit in the classroom yet has the vastest knowledge you ever come across.
Tell me what it's like. What are the sounds of Liberia, Charles? Well,
it's a place where true freedom is. I think freedom. The difference between the freedom here in the United States and the freedom in Liberia, and I say Liberia, not Africa, but Liberia is, there isn't a fear for someone with a different skin tone. Mm. We treat everyone equally, because I know at the end of the day, the distance I cover in the race is based upon my own potential, not my skin color. Whereas here, people suppress it. And I tell my son every day, if someone puts you down, it's because they're very much afraid of potential. If they gave you an even keel as they have, you will outrun them. Yeah.
Well, I really like this idea, the philosophy. If you started the race, right, 3 or 4, in this case, 300 years before me, yep. I might not catch up. But, I think it's interesting. What is the achievement gap? Because what I look at is I think it's black kids being black and not whitening up and assimilating to the majority culture. If you can't take a test, if you have no frame of reference for that person's lived experience, it's going to be difficult to take a test on it. The same way that in 1970, the father of black psychology talked about the idea that white psychologists would go into black homes and they'd look at, Ebony magazine and Jet and Essence, and they would call us illiterate because these are not magazines within their context. It's not literature within their context. And yet we are people who came from Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey and Mary McLeod Bethune, highly educated, even outside of school. And I think about the stories that our children aren't told so that they're not strong, so that their backs can't be straight. Yeah. And yet you have a legacy coming from Liberia that you can then give to your son, and he can pass it on to his daughter, and so on and so on. And what has that meant in your life?
I listen to my son as he talks about the word, and his soul is colorless in his eyes. But I try to encourage him to see it as colorless, but to be very mindful when the glasses are switched one day, don't be too surprised. And when you talk about disparity, a couple of years ago, I did a series of shows in this program, because 1 in every 4 Somali kid was diagnosed with autism.
Yes.
And so over the course of the 4 shows, what we realized is that they were being judged by American standards. Yeah. So you got kids here that grew up watching Sesame Street and Elmo, and they pick up on these words and vocabulary. Whereas in Somalia or Liberia or Africa, there's not Elmo, there's not Sesame Street where they can learn those words. So then you bring them to a doctor here, and he asks them a certain word, and they don't know the word, and he's like, that's irregular growth, or he's lagging behind his development. But the standard's different. It's totally different. And so those are some of the things we have to look at and really, form a society where the equity is highlighted.
So let's talk about the browning of America. It seems like one party can't get it. I won't say that because I'm not a huge fan of parties, period, but it seems like one is absolutely deaf, dumb, and blind. But I'm thinking about the idea that the United States has a really hard time, Charles, with the browning of America, and we can't talk about it. How do Liberians, or whether do Liberians at all, talk about this issue of race that's so prevalent in America?
It's hard to talk about because you don't know it. Mm-hmm. So you just don't see it. You don't know it because you grew up with people who had a different skin tone, but it didn't matter. You didn't see the skin tone. You saw a human being. So when you're similar to the United States and it's a big issue, you hear in the news, but it's an afterthought. It's like it's in the back of your mind. It's not the forefront of your mind because you just cannot relate. If I call someone in Liberia right now and I said, do you know what it feels like to be negative 20 degrees below zero? It's out of their realm of imagination. So the same way when we come here and people talk about, we experience discrimination, but it's laughable to us.
Yes. And I think, frankly, that's part of the beauty of being Liberian or being from a country where race is not the prevalent dominating thing in the culture. And yet I think, and I wonder to myself, how much does that separate the African American from the African in terms of our ability to relate to each other? Because we've never grown up as African Americans not steeped in racism. Mm-hmm. We've never grown up in a society that didn't devalue us because of our skin. And I wonder how many conversations we need to be pushing across our communities to talk about this whole idea of Pan-Africanism involves the African that knows where he came from and what he had and what language he spoke, and the African American who doesn't know necessarily, but we have a shared peoplehood, a shared culture, a shared experience. How are we going to have that conversation in the village, Charles?
Well, when we come here and we dismiss discrimination for a few weeks until we find a job, and then we go on and we interact and we realize that this is real. This is very real and it's hurtful. Yeah. And so I think one of the things that we can teach one another is you can teach me how hurtful it is and why it's hurtful. You can show me your hurt, lean on me, and I can teach you how to ignore it and be stronger.
This is absolutely fantastic. I knew you would be terrific on Urban Agenda. Village Beauties, I know you agree. You are blowing up the phone lines, and it's almost that time. Hey, Beauty, you're live with Charles Dennis in the studio. What's on your mind, love?
Yes, I just wanted to talk about the disconnection between the African-American community and the African.
Please, go ahead, love.
I think if Africans decided to come to America, they should come over here with a direct goal to help us. Don't come over here to start your business and all that. No. We have to help these people over here so they can understand what it is. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Hey, caller, you're live on Urban Agenda. I don't want to say nothing because it's hot like fire. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can't help but join in on the conversation. I just tuned in. So I got a Liberian homie that's been here for about 5-6 years, and the things that he accomplished in the 6 years that he's been here, education, he got his own business, his own career going, and instead of looking at that and being upset or hating, sort of say, look at that as motivation, man. I mean, he accomplished more in his 6 years than I accomplished in my whole life here. You know what I'm saying? So with that being like that, I mean, no, you can't do nothing but look at that and find motivation or find flaws within yourself to correct,
But, brother, what I have to say from one African to another is even though we come here and we achieve success, I want you to know from the bottom of my heart that we owe it all to you guys who were here, who paved the way, who went through, the horses, the lynching and what have you. We still pay homage to you all. You may not have gotten where I am right now, but I know somewhere down the line you pay with sweat, blood, and tears. And we appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I want to say, thank you to you, brother, because you paid with Civil War. I don't know a thing about Civil War. I can tell you all about racial profiling. Hey, caller, you're live on Urban Agenda. What's on your mind?
Okay, I couldn't wait to pull in my driveway and call. Number one, we can't blame each other. We're doing just The gentleman just said it. We do want the Africans who come over here to realize they're getting what they get to set up businesses because of our blood, sweat, and tears, because of our ancestors who are from your homeland. We have to understand each other, take time to know each other, speak to each other when we're out. Liberia was set up because, like Marcus Garvey, he wanted to go back, so they set up Liberia. It has a lot of American ways. We have to know each other. And the ones who come over here and set up shop, I'm so proud. They're taking over Brooklyn Park. I say hi to them. And a lot of them know what we've been through. They're not trying to bombard us.
Caller, you're live on Urban Agenda. These lines are hot like fire. What's on your mind, babe?
Hi, Sister Lissa. I'm enjoying the show. Brother Charles, I'm enjoying you as well.
Thank you.
I just want to say that like one of the other callers said, that we should embrace the Africans that are coming from overseas over here and that's doing well for themselves. I think that we all have opportunities to do well for ourselves. I think we could learn a lot from how, like the African brothers and sisters that come from overseas. Like I see how they don't value the same things that we value, like as far as clothes and rims and all of that type of stuff that we put higher. They put their education higher, and I think we should learn how to think about our education first, and just try to do better that way,
right,
rather than the hate on the way the Africans. I know for a fact that I see a lot of the African brothers and sisters, they don't wear the same kind of clothes that we wear. They don't value that stuff. It's not important to them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
What's important to them is education, and I think that if we put education ahead of the sneakers and the jeans and all of that stuff that we put higher on the list, we'll become a better people.
Thank you so much. One of the stories I want to tell, Charles, because I can't hold it anymore, is the United States Congress and the Library of Congress keeps what are called the slave narratives.
Right.
They were recorded in the 1930s and 40s from living slaves. And the Library of Congress has people in their own voices. And one man tells a story that they came to his village, the Europeans came to his village and wanted to buy people. And the chief and the king said no. And the Europeans came back and they told them, hey, if you come and visit us on the bow of this ship, there's a tree that will give you so much sap and so much sugar, and it'll be so sweet, and it never stops. And as soon as you got there, you were kidnapped. So I think we do need to be very careful that we understand very circumspectly what happened in Africa before we perpetuate the myth that Africans sold Africans into slavery, knowing and understanding that we would be part of the most brutal slave trade in the history of the world.
It used to be folks used to have to travel to Africa to experience the rich culture and tradition. We brought it to you.
Yes.
Embrace it. It's right here. It's in Brooklyn Park. It's right here. Embrace it. I'm married to an African American. If she knew 4 recipes, now she knows 8. Because I brought 4 to her, and she embraced my 4 recipe, so she knows 8th recipe right now. So let's look at it in that context. We're learning. We don't have to buy a plane ticket to go to Africa. Africa is right here. Let's embrace it.
That is a beautiful way to look at it. If you're looking for the questions of your identity, who am I and what did I have and what language did I speak, they're right here. Our history is right here,
right here
living. We're being asked, what do you think about African youth ending up side by side with so many African American youth in the juvenile detention center? What do you think we ought to be doing for our young men who are now, not just because they're African American, but because we are African, are now spending time in the JDC?
Role models. There's this card I had, and I always carry in my pocket. It says, "Daddy, I'm following you, so be careful what you step in."
Oh, I like that.
Yes.
We're going to come back and say goodnight to you, but I can't extend my gratitude. Thank you for bringing Liberia to the village.
It's my pleasure, though.
It is absolutely my privilege, and we will do this again, my man.
Anytime.
All right, I can't wait. You've been listening to Urban Agenda on KMOJ 89.9. Keep peace in the village, and we'll be back next week. Good night.